This is CBC Vancouver News.
It makes sense for BC to kind of continue to push forward with these anti-tariff ads.
Another day, another tariff decision from the U.S. president. How BC's response is likely to land. Plus,
spaces like this just make it a lot more safe to be able to express a real emotion.
finding a way to heal together 6 months after tragedy struck Vancouver's Filipino community. And
yeah, special for the whole community, especially the little kids growing up. You know, they get this nice facility.
Cloverdale christens a new rink, part of Surrey's push to get more kids on the ice. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin in Toronto, where the World Series is now tied at 1 game apiece. The Blue Jays losing Game 2 at home tonight, giving the LA Dodgers a resounding 5-1 win.
Varsho will pop it up for Muncy. This should do it, and it will.
Toronto had tied the game 1-1 in the bottom of the third when Alejandro Kirk hit a sacrifice fly that allowed George Springer to make it home. But the Jays just couldn't manage to score the rest of the game as the Dodgers pulled ahead. The series now heads to Los Angeles for Game 3. That is on Monday. To international news now. Prime Minister Mark Carney has landed in Malaysia for the first leg of his visit to Asia. The trip is key to expanding Canada's trade network outside of the U.S., especially with the president's latest move to end negotiations. On the heels of Ontario's anti-tariff ad, Donald Trump says he's now hiking tariffs on Canadian imports by an extra 10%. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian begins our coverage from Kuala Lumpur.
It's been more than a decade since the Canadian Prime Minister last visited Malaysia, but the Asian continent is now key to Canada's designs to expand its trade relationships, just as many countries in this part of the world want to move beyond China for their own economic needs. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Malaysia as a guest of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. At this summit, he will be meeting with the leaders of Vietnam, Laos, the Philippines, as well as Malaysia itself. Carney's goal is to sign a free trade agreement with this group of 10 countries by the end of 2026. His pitch is that Canada has a lot to offer to the region, including natural gas exports as well as military cooperation. After he's done in Malaysia, Carney will then head to Singapore and then to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. U.S. President Donald Trump will be guest at both summits as well, and a chance encounter between the two men could be awkward given Canada's current tense relations with the U.S. following that Ontario TV ad which showed former President Ronald Reagan blasting the idea of tariffs, an ad that has really upset President Trump.
Well, Canada lied. I mean, what they did was terrible. They made up a fake statement by President Reagan. Reagan was a big supporter of tariffs when needed, and we need tariffs for national security, and they totally turned it around because they're getting hurt by tariffs and we're gaining by tariffs.
Ontario has said it will pull the ad by Monday, hoping trade talks between Canada and the U.S. could resume, though the federal government says it has no indication that could happen. Carney and Trump have not spoken in the last few days. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Kuala Lumpur.
Well, BC, meanwhile, is preparing to make its own ads, the Premier says, to defend British Columbians and our forest industry against U.S. tariffs. Jonna Bailon continues our coverage.
Such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
This ad by the Ontario government won't be on the air for long. Premier Doug Ford says he's pulling it on Monday after it airs during the World Series games this weekend. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he's terminating trade negotiations with Canada over the ad. But as one ad campaign goes, another appears to be on its way.
But we are going to be doing some targeted ads to ensure that the voice of forestry is represented.
In a post on X on Friday, BC Premier David Eby said Americans need to hear how tariffs raise prices. We are making ads to defend British Columbia and Canada's forestry workers. U.S. tariffs and duties on Canadian softwood rose to 45% over a week ago, a devastating blow to an already struggling industry. This week, the family-owned Sinclair Group Forest Products announced it will be scaling back operations at 3 of its sawmills, affecting about 350 workers.
Talking to forest workers, they want us to fight to make sure that the Americans understand, that Ottawa understands that our industry is important.
A forestry industry consultant says the topic is sensitive and some tactics are not working. According to a political expert, the BC government's move makes sense, but its effectiveness will depend on how the ads will look.
The key thing that BC is going to have to balance is creating an ad that's effective for creating the message that they want, but so much so that it doesn't cause an overreaction from Donald Trump.
A spokesperson with the BC Ministry of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation says the ads will be digital, not for TV or radio, and they'll target U.S. audiences most affected by the new tariffs. The ads are expected to roll out in November. Jonna Bailon, CBC News, Vancouver.
It was a blustery day around BC with stormy weather slamming the south coast. Gusty winds knocked out power to roughly 5,000 properties province-wide. Environment Canada warns strong gusts up to 90 kilometers an hour will continue overnight into tomorrow morning. And looking at the highway cameras, no flakes out there just yet, but there is a snowfall warning for the Coquihalla Highway between Hope and Merritt at the summit there, and as well parts of Highway 3 near the Kootenay Pass. A heart-pounding police chase in Chilliwack overnight. It started when a truck took off from a traffic stop, then sped into the downtown area and wound up colliding head-on with a police car. These photos from RCMP, it shows the truck then blew through multiple intersections before losing control and ramming into a parked civilian vehicle. Luckily, no one was inside. The driver continued to evade officers, crashing into several more police cruisers along the way. Eventually, police say the driver was arrested and taken to the hospital with cuts from broken glass. 2 Mounties were also left with minor injuries. Investigators aren't sure if the suspect vehicle was stolen. The driver remains in custody, facing a number of charges. A 27-year-old man has been charged with second-degree murder more than 4 years after a deadly shooting in Burnaby.
I can confirm that Mr. Riley is well known to the police and has had extensive interactions with police in the past. The relationship between the victim and the suspect will come out in court. I'm not in a position to comment too much because the allegations still need to be proven. What's important here is that it was a targeted shooting and not a shooting that happened at random.
The shooting happened in this neighborhood in February of 2021. When police showed up at the home, they found 44-year-old Neil Pratap, who'd been shot multiple times. He later died in the hospital. It has been exactly 6 months since 11 people were killed at a Filipino festival in Vancouver. Dozens more were injured, many still healing from the tragedy. Our Janella Hamilton has more now on efforts to connect and cope with the lingering grief.
Emotions run high for many in this room. Some here still grieving after the deadly Lapu-Lapu festival attack this past April.
We're still in that healing and grieving process. And I think it's important to be out there to get support and at the same time also provide support to others.
That support being offered at Saturday's Day of Healing in New Westminster.
The most difficult thing about grief, traumatic loss, grief of any kind, is the tendency to isolate and be alone.
We need to cry.
The day began with a grief seminar for men and youth before participants took part in yoga and a Paint Your Grief workshop.
So we're still using the black color.
Artist Renato Pablo says art can be a powerful tool in the healing process.
Once you do some art, it will blend into your body and into your soul. That can generate your grief feeling, so you can had an energy to regain your lust.
Vera DeSena was at the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival. She left an hour before the vehicle crashed through the crowds.
I find that it's very difficult to talk about the hard stuff in our day-to-day, so spaces like this just make it a lot more safe to be able to express a real emotion.
Meanwhile, at one of the makeshift memorials in Vancouver, the chair of Filipino BC says months later, the feelings remain vivid in their minds.
It's difficult. There's the physical recovery, but there's just the overall grief and just mental toll that this has taken.
His organization continues to push for more resources and supports.
Like funding for the recovery of victims and families. We've called for initiating the conversation on what legislative changes need to be in place in order to prevent something like this from happening again.
The city has said there are discussions about a permanent memorial to honor the victims of Lapu Lapu, a place the community says would help them mourn, grieve, and heal together. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, New Westminster.
To Kamloops now, and a rally today after every maternity doctor resigned from Royal Inland Hospital.
Today we're calling on our provincial government and Interior Health to step up. Not tomorrow, not next year, but today. Urgent action is needed immediately to address this crisis, or we will see fetal and maternal death in Kamloops. And in 2025, that is unacceptable.
All 7 OBGYNs quit, saying they were pushed to a breaking point with heavy workloads. BC's health minister is hopeful a resolution can be found, saying 12 replacement doctors have expressed interest in working at that hospital and that the door is always open for those other doctors to return. Those doctors released a joint statement earlier this week indicating they might reconsider if working conditions improve. From multiplexes to low-rise apartments, middle-density housing in Vancouver is lagging far behind other cities. That's the upshot of a new national housing report. Our Michelle Gassoub looks at the search efforts to find the missing middle.
Vancouver, the land of multi-million-dollar single-family homes and glimmering glass condos. But where is the housing for those who need something in between?
Think of a family that needs more space but can't necessarily afford a single family home.
A new report confirms Vancouver lags far behind other Canadian cities in building low-rise apartments, stacked townhouses, and multiplexes, aka the missing middle.
Calgary last year built 15 times more missing middle housing than Vancouver did. And I knew we weren't doing great at building that kind of housing, but these were some pretty stark numbers.
New middle density builds are also trending downwards, falling 56% between 2018 and 2024. The report finds the high cost of land in Vancouver means developers typically favor taller, denser projects.
So when you have low land availability on one hand, and then the land that you have available is quite expensive, well, it does reduce the financial viability of a smaller scale project.
The city has introduced new legislation to rezone neighborhoods and speed up permits for multiplexes. And recently, the condo market has slumped, with many smaller units going unsold. Advocates say it shows Vancouver families need more options.
If we built small apartment buildings in Dunbar, in Kerrisdale, in South Vancouver, in all of these detached no-home neighborhoods, I think we all know a lot of people who would be happy to live in them.
Hopes Vancouver can catch up and find what's missing. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Cloverdale is the backdrop of a shiny new ice complex that threw open its doors for the first time today. As our Kier Junos tells us, it's one of several new ice rinks poised to be built in Surrey in the coming years.
I'm standing in the new Center for Everything Ice Sports in Cloverdale. It's a community with a long and strong hockey history in Surrey, and their new facility has 2 rinks with a 3rd one on the way. It's also going to be the home for Cloverdale's new Pacific junior hockey team.
I think there was a team in the 1970s, so we're the first junior team since then. Cloverdale's, it's a community that deserves a team. They have a rich history of producing a lot of high-end hockey players that have come out of here.
Yeah, it's special for the whole community, especially the little kids growing up. You know, they get this nice facility to play games and practice in, and it's just more ice time for everyone that wants to hit the ice.
The work on this complex isn't over yet, with a 3rd sheet of ice still to be added and with a final price tag of $167 million. Officials from all levels of government were at the grand opening Saturday afternoon, remarking on the need for building more recreational spaces in the city as the population grows.
This complex is about kids getting their first pair of skates,
women and girls hockey expanding, figure skaters training closer to home.
Figure skaters with the Lower Mainland Synchronized Skating Club say the new rink provides their team a more central place to meet up.
For our team, it's especially good because all of our skaters are all over across the mainland because we're kind of scattered. So it's especially nice that we're getting another rink here because it gives us one more location to skate at.
The mayor says South Surrey will be the next neighborhood to get another 3 rinks.
Surrey is the fastest growing city. We all know that. We all know that the city of Surrey is really a city of families. So we have to create these places and spaces for kids and youth and adults too.
No timeline yet on when South Surrey will get its new rink, but this complex is expected to be fully finished in 2027. Keir Drunos, CBC News, Surrey.
Well, the countdown is on to Halloween, and today families gathered in Surrey's Newton neighborhood for an event called Treat Accessibly. Our Michelle Gomez stopped by.
There's no tricks, only treats here in Surrey at the 3rd annual Treat Accessibility event. It's part of a countrywide initiative where kids of all abilities can come and enjoy the Halloween tradition without any barriers.
The Treat Accessibly Halloween villages make everyone feel welcome and comfortable and they belong. We heard from so many parents that their children had never gone out trick-or-treating before because they didn't know a home would be accessible. That's why we started the villages and now have them in 9 cities across Canada.
Here we are. Thank you.
For parents, it's just thankfulness that their kids get an opportunity as well. And as us, we never realized how important this event was until you see the smiles on these kids' faces. You realize that every kid deserves to go trick-or-treating. Happy Halloween, guys, come on over.
Everyone is important, so just being able to be aware of the needs of others is very kind of the city, and that everyone should look out for everyone. So if there's a will, there's a way.
Still ahead, we take you to Prince George, where a First Nations art exhibit reflects deep connections to cultural identity. That's coming up next. Welcome back. A first of its kind Indigenous art exhibit has opened in Prince George. Our Hannah Peterson takes a look.
The name of this exhibition is Tube Sagana, which means we live by water, and without water we would not be, which simply translates to water's life.
Kim Gucci is a Lheidli T'enneh musician, artist, and the co-curator of the exhibit. Lheidli T'enneh means people of the confluence, and Gucci says the exhibit explores the enduring relationship with the Fraser and Nechako rivers.
I really think it's going to be emotional for our community because of the fact that people don't see this side of us. A lot of people have never been out to the Lheidli south side or north side, and this gallery space is sort of set up in that way metaphorically.
It features painting, carving, photography, textiles, and traditional practices from over 30 Lheidli and Dakelh artists. It's the most expansive art exhibit of its kind and the first to be curated from within the Lheidli T'enneh community. Co-curator Jennifer Piggin is a Lheidli T'enneh artist and educator. She says the exhibit is an opportunity for Lheidli T'enneh members to see themselves as artists.
Most people would think, Lheidli artists, there's only like 2 or 3, but in reality we want to show the diversity and really encourage our artists to look at the work that they do in a way that they maybe don't do on a normal everyday basis.
Piggin says the exhibition has also been an opportunity for people to reconnect with culture and the Dakelh language.
We've been taking the titles of each of these pieces and translating it into Dakelh with the help of a Tache elder, Charlie Joseph, as well as Bill Poser, a linguist, and we do consult also with Peter John, who's one of our last fluent speakers in the Lheidli community. Actually, he is our last fluent speaker.
Piggin and Gucci say they hope the exhibit offers the community a chance to learn more about Lheidli T'enneh and Dakelh culture.
Being able to come here and be a part of an exhibition that is historical to not only our community but also to the gallery is pretty epic, I think.
The exhibit runs until January 5th, 2026. Hannah Peterson, CBC News, Prince George.
You're looking at a live shot of Harbour Centre. Hard to tell a little bit, but that fall storm is still going on out there. It was a stormy Saturday for sure. Sunday, not quite as soggy. That forecast on tap. We'll have a full look coming up next. And let's take a closer look at the forecast, that big fall storm that has swept across most of BC. Let's start with our overnight temperatures. You can see that precipitation continuing pretty much province-wide. If you can look at the overnight lows, are not dipping down quite to freezing, except for maybe the very north, Fort St. John, Dease Lake, etc. But otherwise, we're hovering just above that 0 mark, so should come down as a mix of rain showers, basically. We do have a snowfall warning in effect for the Coquihalla Summit and also parts of Highway 3 along the Kootenay Pass there. So we are expecting 15 to 20 centimeters overnight with that storm as it moves kind of east towards the southern interior. Otherwise, here's the forecast for tomorrow province-wide. Again, those showers should taper off in many areas, even some breaks of sun possible. So those temperatures should moderate, and then through the week, we'll see them hover around that double-digit mark for Metro Vancouver. Well, Caitlin Stewart, a world champion bartender, has spent years behind the counter at Vancouver's top restaurants and bars, and today she runs her own business called Likeable Cocktails. CBC caught up with her in New West to learn what it takes to make a great bartender.
I'm Caitlin Stewart, also known as Likeable Cocktails, and welcome to my home bar. The idea behind having the home bar was to have a little piece of, what I absolutely love. And I love cocktails, I love bartending. Bartending has been a part of my life for 20 years, and it's kind of taken an interesting turn having the space to be able to create my own home bar at home is something that now I like to share with people through social media, through online virtual classes. The fact that there's so many people that want to learn about cocktails and want to learn about just different techniques and ways to make drinks, it's been really cool to kind of build this community and feel like this sense of camaraderie with a bunch of people from around the world. Being a great bartender takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of, being resilient and kind of being able to switch on a dime because you never know what's going to happen, but also just being a welcoming host. Obviously making a good drink is important, but it's the thought and time and effort that goes into making that good drink. It makes the whole experience that much better as a bartender. And in 2017, I won the prestigious title of World Class Bartender of the Year. I was the first Canadian to do it, the second female to do it. I couldn't be more proud to, represent Canada on the global stage and take that title home and wear it with pride.
And that is your late news for this Saturday, October 25th. For news anytime, anywhere, head to our website. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on North by Northwest starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.